Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show podcast, coming to you from right here in our quaint little studio. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. I'm joined in studio today by Ray Ora.
Hey, good morning, everyone.
Jonathan Voico's here.
Hello, everybody.
And most importantly, you fine selves are here. Thank you so much for being here, making this little show part of your day. Here's how the show's going to go. We're going to start off by talking about a bunch of predetermined topics. Then in the second half of the show comes the important stuff. We take your live comments and questions. If you have a comment or question for the show, go ahead and use our tip link right now at www.streamelements.com/JohnCampea/tip. Send it on in, and as long as we consider it appropriate to be read on the show, we'll address in the second half. And listen, the good news about the tip link is that if you're one of the many people who watches this show when it's not actually live, you can still get a question, and go ahead and use the tip link anytime, 24 hours a day. And if you send it in when we're not live, we'll just get around to answering it, as long as it's appropriate, on our next episode. Also want to remind you guys, do me a favor, everybody. Go over and find the audio version of our show. This is, of course, the John Campea Show podcast, so you can find an audio-only version of our show on your favorite podcasting app of choice, Spotify, Apple, whatever. Because, you know, sometimes you're going to be driving, you're going to be at work, you're going to be at the gym, and you need the John Campea Show fix. This will do it for you. Go and subscribe to it, so it'll be there when you need it. All right, guys. With that down, let's get things started here today, shall we? Talking about things I need. Thunderbolts. I'll tell you what, they announced Thunderbolts, and I thought, who the hell cares? Don't care. But then they started to announce who the lineup of the Thunderbolts was. Now, we knew Yelena was going to be in there, right? So that was no big surprise. Ghost being in there from Ant-Man 2 was kind of a pleasant little addition. Elaine is in there. That's good. But once they mentioned that Bucky was going to be in it, that really got my interest. But then, cherry on top, David Harbour as Red Guardian was coming in. The single best part of that otherwise okay Black Widow movie. Red Guardian stole the show. And I've been dying to see David Harbour back again. Well, of course, they've started production on the movie, but they are well into it because David Harbour today announced that he has wrapped production. It's all done for him. He even put up this post. He put this picture on social media, which is, I guess, a poster from the movie. In Russian, it says, "We are indomitable as the Red Guardian." I guess that's supposed to be a younger him in the picture. But here's what he wrote. He wrote, "Wrapped. Loved making this. Love the bolts." He had a great time with it in hashtag Thunderbolts, all that kind of stuff. So all good for him. All great. All right. This is one of those things where I call the tangibilization. Things like, oh my God, this thing is like almost here. Like it's real. David Harbour's now wrapped. And it's always nice because David Harbour doesn't always do this. It's nice to see a performer like so enthusiastic about the project they're involved in that he's even just getting on to saying, I'm done rapping and I loved this. I love this group. I loved making this movie. And so I'll tell you what, it piques my interest a little bit.
I think you made a mistake on your intro for the Thunderbolts. It's like you introduced the Lakers without mentioning Anthony Davis. Our boy Wyatt Russell is in this movie.
That's right. Walmart Captain America.
Walmart Captain America has just been upgraded after Monarchs, the Monarch
Yeah,
series.
that's true. His stock has gone up.
I really like this actor. I cannot wait to see a character that I didn't like when I was watching.
I don't think you're gonna like his
not
character.
at first.
Winter Soldier.
Yeah, but he grew on us, right? Like we
Well-
were talking about, he's the bargain bin Captain America. But then as we started to learn more about him and his character got a little deeper, it's like by the end of him, like, you know what? I like discount Captain America.
Yeah.
And then you're right. But then we see him in Monarch and he killed it in Monarch.
I like him in that, and I like Wyatt Russell.
But
I do not like his character.
You don't like Walmart Captain America?
No.
I think it's going to turn out to be really good, and I'm excited for the film. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? Didn't they announce this movie the same time they announced Blade? I'm not being facetious.
No, you are being facetious.
Did they not announce this movie and now this is finished production? You know what? No, I think they announced it. They did. They announced this movie years after they announced Blade.
I'm like, what are you talking about, man?
Yeah, Blade was announced in 2019.
Blade could have had a baby in the time that like Blade was announced between this being announced.
Meanwhile, Mahershala Ali is still sitting in the waiting room. They're saying any minute now, Mahershala.
It's going to happen.
Any minute now. They'll be ready to go. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? Whatever your thoughts are, I'm excited for it. Jump down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts.
You're really good at ruining people's days. You know that? Jesus, man.
I just got to keep throwing out the Blade thing.
Once a day, you got to throw a Blade thing.
Got to remind you about Blade, that we still don't have it yet. All right, guys. That all down. Let's move on to this, shall we? You know, the world is divided into two separate groups of people. Those who like new Star Trek and those who do not. I'm a little bit in the middle, but I lean more towards that I do like it. Like, Discovery has been hit and miss. I'm not really a fan of their below deck stuff or whatever. But I'll tell you what, Star Trek Strange New Worlds, I think, is the best Star Trek thing we've had since The Next Generation. That show's fabulous. But I like the Chris Pine Star Trek movies. The second one was a little weaker, yes, but I really liked the first one, and I loved the third one. And I, as a matter of fact, spent an entire year and a half before that first Chris Pine Star Trek movie came out crap talking the whole thing. Said, this is stupid. Why make another movie? This is a dead franchise. Nobody cares. Like, Star Trek fans are literally dying off. Every week, they are literally dying in the hospice centers because it's a 75-year-old, 150-year-old franchise that never garnered new fans after The Next Generation. But then that movie came out, and I really liked it. Had a good time. Anyway, there's been a lot of talk about the possibility of them doing another Star Trek movie with that cast. There's been some positive news, some negative news, where are things at? Well, now Chris Pine, speaking at a comic convention this weekend, he has come out and said he's really excited about the idea of doing another one. This comes to us from the Popverse, who write this. In terms of the next phase of Star Trek, obviously, you're all fans. This is Chris Pine speaking. You're all fans, so I'm sure you've read it, Pine said. This is a reference to reports that Pine and his classmates, or castmates, I should say, would return for an untitled Star Trek sequel set in the franchise's Kelvin timeline. The project has been in development hell for years, and Pine's involvement has shifted depending on various factors. However, the star said he really wants to work with this Trek cast again. We all like one another a lot. I'm good friends with everybody I've worked with. We have a great time doing it. I'm a lot older now, so I would be curious where the next story lands us in terms of what it would be and what we've said in the press. Now, Chris Pine, as it points out, he was a baby. He was 29 years old when they made that first one. He's now 43. His career has grown. By the way, if you still have not seen Chris Pine's Dungeons and Dragons movie, what are you doing? It's really fun. It's a really good little movie that deserved much better, and Chris Pine was great in it. You should go check it out. So it comes back to this. Now, Star Trek's gone through a lot of stuff, right? All the shows coming and going. Remember, there was a Quentin Tarantino Star Trek movie they were going to do?
Supposed to happen.
All that excitement. Like, Tarantino said he was going to do one. Then that kind of went away as well. Some people didn't like the idea of Tarantino doing Star Trek. I did. I thought it would have been really fun. But with all the stuff talking about like 100 years before the events of Star Trek, all this stuff, what I really want, what I really, really want, to channel my inner Spice Girl, is to see this cast back together again. I really like this cast. Granted, you tragically have to do it without Chekhov.
Right.
That's fine. I still think they should recast him.
Yeah,
I still think they should recast him, but the whole cast has said they won't recast the character, which I think is unfortunate, but whatever. I would really like to see this. And you know what? I think it can do pretty well, as long as they don't make it for $200 million.
Right.
Like, you make this thing for, like, what did Kevin Costner make Horizon for again? 100 million?
About 350 million. It's going to bring in about 2 million. So
yeah, no, but if you make it for about 100 million,
yeah,
bring it for about 100 million. And I think this movie could do okay.
Well, he mentions playing an older Captain Kirk.
Yeah.
Did that change the actual dynamic of the movies that they've been? Because Rob has mentioned the newer movies. They're a lot more action than
they're more modern movies.
Right,
yeah.
right. Do you think that would his playing an older Captain
I think
Kirk
it'd be
would
great.
actually change that
Maybe
that aspect of the film?
Maybe.
I think he's young enough that he still pulls that off, though.
Oh yeah, he's definitely. I mean, he's
not an old
43.
man.
I mean, he's still young.
Yeah.
But I mean, but yeah, I think it does offer them the opportunity, with them getting a little older, a little wiser, that he's not just the young hotshot captain now. He's a little bit more seasoned as a Captain Kirk.
Yeah.
But I don't think you go all the way back to the 1960s Star Trek. I think you, though, move it a little bit more towards the center, where you involve a little bit more philosophy, a little bit. Listen, the original Star Trek is loaded with politics, pop culture stuff, and philosophy. There's a lot of it in all the original Star Trek stuff. And I think maybe they need to swing the pendulum a little bit away from just the pure modern action sci-fi flick to 60% that and maybe 40% more like deeper thinking man sci-fi sort of stuff.
Yeah,
maybe.
It's got to, because even like in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan with Shatner,
yes,
he's not even at that age yet, because Shatner was in that movie questioning his age, right? Kirk was like, am I getting too old for this? You know what I mean? Like he was in his 50s, so you know what I mean?
You know how old William Shatner, Captain Kirk, was in the first Star Trek movie?
How?
48.
Yeah.
He was already 48.
So he was already like questioning his midlife crisis. Or Pine's not there yet. Pine's got another.
No, Pine won't be there yet.
Yeah.
Didn't one of the trailers of these newer Star Trek films have Beastie Boys? As
yes. Stupid idea.
The first one.
So no.
No, it was the third one.
Star Trek 4.
Oh, I'm thinking of the trailer for the first one.
Oh yeah, the trailer.
Yeah,
was it in the trailer or in the movie?
Well, it was in both. See, because once I saw the movie, right? Then, because they say, oh, I'm going to play one of the old classics, classical music. And they played Beastie Boys. Then it made sense for the trailer. But in the trailer, it made no sense because it didn't feel like a Star Trek movie. Remember Scott Mance was talking about that in my documentary. He goes, that's the problem with that, playing that Beastie Boys song in that Star Trek trailer, was that it just made it not feel like a Star Trek movie at all.
Yeah.
And he was right. It was a bad mistake. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? You got any interest in seeing a new Star Trek movie with Chris Pine and crew? I'm down for it. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? In the midst of all the awful things that Star Wars has been putting out lately, be it Book of Boba Fett, Rise of Skywalker, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and now The Acolyte, it might be tempting to forget that they've also put out some fantastic stuff. You know, Andor, Rogue One. But on the TV side, Mandalorian, at least Mandalorian seasons 1 and 2. Season 3, maybe not so much, but season Mandalorians 1 and 2 were really great and really exciting. And one of the reasons for that, not the primary one, but was the presence of the wonderful, nay, the great Giancarlo Esposito as the new villain, Moff Gideon, wielding that dark saber in his hand. How cool was he to hang out with in LA that one time, right?
Yeah.
How cool was he? Anyway, love Giancarlo. Of course, he's going to be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe here soon. He's going to be popping up in Captain America 4. He's just, oh, by the way, the Gentleman series on Netflix, fantastic. He's fantastic in that. He's great in everything. What's the video game he's in?
Far Cry 6.
Yeah, Far Cry, like everything he does, whatever he puts his voice into, whatever he shows up in, he just kills it. Well, now, of course, a little bit of a spoiler alert. If you've not seen Mandalorian season 3, which is okay if you didn't because it's not that great, but at the end of it, Moff Gideon meets his fiery demise. Or does he? Or does he? Giancarlo Esposito was recently asked about the possibility of maybe returning to The Mandalorian, because for those of you who may not know, Mandalorian has got a movie coming. It's going to be called The Mandalorian and Grogu. Screw you, we know his real name is Baby Yoda. But he said something interesting. Esposito said this: anything is possible. You know, I don't know anything about that at the present, but I put out there that if they need me, I will be there. I love what Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, and Disney does with The Mandalorian, and who knows? There may be a moment where I can swoop down and take over once again. Okay. I had thoughts when I heard him say this. Two different thoughts. My first thought was, it's time we move past Moff Gideon, right? That, okay, we did the Moff Gideon storyline. I really didn't like it. Like, ultimately, his big bad plan was just making clones. Anyway, I mean, I still love the character, but I thought we finished his storyline. It's time to move on. But then I thought about it a little bit more. And I thought, there's something to be said about a consistent and refusing to go away antagonist that just keeps coming back. And I would propose that of all the Star Wars stuff that we've had on Disney Plus, Ahsoka had cake-loving Moff Tarkin, or not Moff Tarkin, Admiral Thrawn, Cake Boss Thrawn, as I like to call him. I'm sorry, it was somewhere hanging out on that witch planet. He developed a love of cake.
Well, he's got Tom Cruise's cakes.
They got Tom Cruise's cake there, but Cake Thrawn is there. That's fine. Book of Boba Fett, don't even get me started. The Obi-Wan situation was what it was, but because Vader came and went. But really, as a true antagonist to the series, I think Moff Gideon might be the best antagonist they've had in the Disney Plus stuff so far. I mean, obviously, overall, Darth Vader is the better villain overall, but if we're talking about just the Disney Plus stuff, he might be the best one they've had.
I like the guy that Ray Stevenson was playing, though, too.
Oh, yeah. What was his name again? He
never got a chance, though.
They never gave him enough screen time.
Well, I mean, obviously, yeah. But yeah, he was.
But just the character.
Just the character. Crap. I forgot the name of it.
Balin.
Thank you.
Balin was an amazing character that they barely touched on. Couple of conversations and that was it. I mean, that was a really underutilized. I do hope they recast him and try to come back to that character later because they're setting up some good stuff. But so all that being said, it's still Bill in the live chat, Jace gave a really good suggestion. Like since obviously we can't have Ray Stevenson come back as Balin, Liev Schreiber as Balin.
I could see that.
Huh?
Uh-huh.
He would work.
Mm-hmm.
He'd be really good
because of that stoic voice and then
that hard edge face and
that calm demeanor. But also, what Ray Stevenson had for him in the later years of his life, he bulked up a pretty. I never realized how big he was until he was on the just the.
Oh no, he was always big. Go back and look at his Punisher movie.
Yeah,
I loved his Punisher movie.
It worked well with the way he looked.
Yeah, but anyway, we're here to talk about Giancarlo Esposito.
Yeah, Ray.
And Moff Gideon. And anyway, so like after some thought and contemplation, I would be totally down. I don't know that this is what they're going to do, but I would be totally down for the return of Moff Gideon in a Mandalorian and Grogu movie at any rate. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? Do you like the idea of Giancarlo Esposito coming back as Moff Gideon, or do you think it's time, like kind of my first thought of just move on from that character and bring in a new antagonist for the movie? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? Inside Out 2, it is without hyperbole or exaggeration, is absolutely crushing the box office right now. One of the fastest starting animated films of all time. It became in just 9 days, the biggest box office hit of the year. And we're already almost in July. And it's far surpassed the original, all that kind of stuff. And now it is on pace, according to the Hollywood Reporter, to become the fastest billion-dollar club animated film in box office history. Hollywood Reporter said this: Pixar and Disney's Inside Out 2 has a big weekend ahead of it as it prepares to close out June by becoming the first film of 2024 to jump the $1 billion mark in worldwide ticket sales. It is expected to accomplish this feat on Sunday or possibly Monday, faster than any animated movie in history, or 17 to 18 days. Nor will it have any trouble fending off the competition and staying number one in its third outing ahead of A Quiet Place Part 1. I'm not so sure it finishes ahead of A Quiet Place Part 1. We'll talk about that in a minute. And Kevin Costner's ambitious $100 million period piece Western Horizon, an America Fuck Yeah Saga, Chapter 1. So, let me just address that quickly. I'm not 100% convinced that Inside Out 2 beats A Quiet Place Day 1, because they're projecting $40 to $50 million opening for A Quiet Place Day 1, and Inside Out is going into its third weekend.
Unless it pulls 40 million, 45 million.
If it pulls 45 to 50 million, it can do it. Anyway, this is insane. Now, I also want to point out a couple things about this. Starts getting Inside Out 2 We need to start talking about how big can it get? If it's about to cross the $1 billion mark this weekend and it's rolling strong, how big can it get? Because now we got to start looking at what the biggest animated films of all time are. So let's go over and take a look at this. So as of right now, the biggest box office animated films of all time. Number one is the 2019 version of The Lion King. And I again, every time
live action, those are real animals.
But that was live action, wasn't it?
Those
No, it was not live action. It looked live action. It was a completely animated movie.
No one can convince me those real animals weren't talking.
They trained real lions to have conversations. All right. So Lion King is the number one box office animated film of all time. Frozen 2 at 1.45 billion. Super Mario Brothers at 1.36 billion. Then comes in Frozen, the first one, at 1.28 billion. Think about that. The Frozen films have made $2.7 billion. Think about that. That's a lot of freaking princess.
Thank you.
Carrot
Just
top.
so you know that's money.
Can't remember what their names are, but that's a lot of letting go. The Incredibles in there next at $1.24 billion. Minions at 1.15 billion, and Toy Story 4 at 1.07 billion. All right. So this is the list right now. I think it's safe to say right now that Inside Out 2 easily crosses Toy Story 4 and Minions to get into that sixth spot. I think where it becomes a little bit of a question is if it can climb past Incredibles 2 and crack into the top 5. Now, if it can, getting Frozen won't be too much more because that's only like $40 million more. I don't know that it gets Super Mario or Frozen 2, but we're talking about Inside Out can become like the 5th biggest animated film ever in history.
I'd have to compare its tracking, like how quickly were they hitting those marks? You know what I mean?
But here's the thing, it's ahead of the pace, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of people at home might be saying, well, John, right now it's outpacing all of those movies. Why don't you think it's going to easily pass them? Here's why. There's a little film called Despicable Me 4 coming. Mm-hmm. That is also targeting the exact same audience. And instead of taking their kids to see Inside Out 2 for the 3rd, 4th, or 5th time, they may plug that tap and say, don't worry, we got Despicable Me coming. So that's the one thing. But listen, I'm telling you, all these movies that are coming out, particularly these animated movies, we could end up with $4 billion films this year.
That's to say they're good, the ones coming out.
And because they've got traction, they got momentum, and I think they're going to be good. Number one, we've got Inside Out 2. That's going to pass $1 billion this weekend. Is there anybody on the planet left who doesn't think Deadpool and Wolverine is going to make $1 billion? Like, is there anybody left who doesn't think this movie is going to make $1 billion? So Deadpool and Wolverine will probably make $1 billion. Despicable Me 4, I think, has a real chance at $1 billion.
And the best part about Despicable Me 4 is that it's only an hour and 34 minutes. That is one short movie.
That gives it a lot of screenings.
Yep.
And then, remember, last year, an 8-year-old movie was the number one streaming movie in the world. Moana. Mm-hmm. Moana 2 comes out at the end of this year.
Don't sleep on that.
You don't think that's got a chance to be? We could be. And listen, then there's an outlier like Joker. But it's so weird when you look at how bad the first half of 2024 was. And we said this all the way back in 2023. We were saying, guys, the strikes, everything's going to be a mess. First half of 2024, it's going to be really, really tough. We got to wait to see what happens when we get into the second half of 2024. And sure enough, the first half of 2024 was rough. But now we had Bad Boys just do really well for itself at the box office. Obviously now Inside Out is destroying all expectations. We literally could end up with $4 billion films. Oh, and by the way, Jenny Miller in the live chat just reminded me, we also got a little movie coming called Wicked.
Yeah.
And you don't think that's going to be big? I'm not saying it's going to be $1 billion film, but you don't think that movie's going to be big? I guarantee you that movie's going to be big. So it could turn out really interesting and good. Now the question becomes just how big, how high up the chart is Inside Out 2 going to go? It's already done better than anybody thought it would. How high can it go? Question is for you guys. What do you think about this? Inside Out 2 continues to dominate at the box office. It's about to become the first $1 billion film of the year. Fastest animated film ever to get to $1 billion. How high can it go? How many billion-dollar films will we have this year? Whatever you guys think, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. That down. Let's move on to this, shall we? It's game day.
Game day.
It's day one for A Quiet Place World. Now, listen, I admit my kind of disappointment when we first found out that in the new Quiet Place movie, we were not visiting or going to be back with the family again. That John Krasinski, Emily Blunt, those kids, we weren't going to be visiting that family again. However, when we found out that the future ex-Mrs. Campea, Lupita Nyong'o, was going to be starring an Academy Award winner, by the way. And then they went out and got, who is right now kind of one of the hottest names in Hollywood, in Joseph Quinn, who, of course, what was his character's name in Stranger Things again?
Eddie Munson.
Eddie Munson. And now he's in Fantastic Four.
Yep.
So he's kind of, Hollywood is kind of, him and Paul Walter Hauser should form a duo or something, starring everything. Today it comes out. But then there was a really big worrying sign about it. They held the review embargo until the day the movie came out. That's today. 95% of the time, when a studio holds up a review embargo, that means they have no faith in the movie. So I was kind of holding my breath today when I woke up and I knew that the reviews would be dropping this morning about how bad is it going to be. But you know what? They're pretty good. Not as good as the other two, but pretty good. Take a look at this. So the first Quiet Place, which I think was the best movie of the year in 2018, I thought it should have been nominated. Nay, I thought it should have won Best Picture at the Academy Awards in 2018, but whatever, it didn't. 96%. Quiet Place 2 came out, right up there with it, 91%. And now this one, as we're getting close to 100 reviews, A Quiet Place Day 1 has a very surprising 87%. I was expecting to see this thing in the 40 to 50 range. I really was. Now, not a lot of people are saying this is the best one yet, but the reviews are good. Let's go over and take a look at some of these reviews here. So let's see. Let's start with a negative one from Eskimo TV, who wrote, despite an intriguing premise and strong performances, the film falls short of its predecessors, lacking substance, originality, and depth. A mild disappointment for fans. All right. Dread Central, who love their horror stuff, writes, A Quiet Place Day 1 is big, beautiful, and tense. The film expertly navigates a more interesting avenue found within this world without losing sight of the human condition. Punch-Drunk Critics wrote, A Quiet Place Day 1 is a somber entry into the series, ending on a bittersweet note that is sure to be divisive. Well, I'm curious about that. Nerd Reactor wrote, Lupita Nyong'o and Joseph Quinn are absolutely captivating in A Quiet Place Day 1. Mama's Geeky wrote, A Quiet Place Day 1 is a great exploration of the human connection and how tragedies can pull even strangers together. Lupita Nyong'o and Joseph Quinn have incredible chemistry. Use of sound is dynamic. Awards Watch writes, A Quiet Place Day 1 won't go down as Sarnowski's finest hour, but it's the kind of stepping stone that leads a director to the film that will be. That's an interesting take on it. Larson on Film writes, has vulnerability that's rare in big would-be blockbusters. And then we'll finish off here with the Irish Times, who writes, the set pieces are well handled, but this prequel stands out most for its commitment to fleshy humanity. Nyong'o allows no mawkishness into her portrayal of someone watching the whole world catch up with her own mortal concerns. So overall, I mean, not the jumping up and down. This is one of the greatest revelatory things we've seen in cinema in forever, like the original Quiet Place was, but clearly very solid. I mean, the people seem to like it. They say it's up there. They say it's a good time. I'm still wondering today what I'm hoping. Like, we're going to go see it in 3 hours, Ray. In 3 hours, we're going to go see this movie. And I'm still don't know what it is I'm thinking I'm going to see. Like, what can they do that is even remotely new that we didn't get in the first two Quiet Place movies? Or how can they repeat what was done in the first two and elevate it at the same time? And I'm still a little doubtful, I'll be honest, as great as Joseph and Lupita are, that I spent a couple of movies getting really attached to these kids and getting attached to this family and navigating this world as it unfolds. Do I want a prequel? Maybe. Anyway, I just know I like the trailers a lot. So I'm going to go in with high hopes.
I think this movie will expand the scope of what we've seen so far. I mean, with the family, it was a little more intimate.
Yeah.
There was a little more nothing. Now we get to see how the rest of the world reacted. Or this was before. This is a prequel.
This is day one, the first day. Yeah, yep.
So I actually find a huge interest in this because of what we got in A Quiet Place. I want to see how this all went
came
down,
about.
of course. And I mean, I thought this movie, when they first brought it up, was a great idea, because we actually were in the middle of it when we started A Quiet Place.
Yep, yeah, that's true.
And sometimes you do need to go back, and this is one of those special cases where I do like it.
Here's the part that interests me is that it takes place in a city. Because what we've seen so far has been in quieter areas and like more remote areas. This is like right in the heart of a metropolis, and seeing that happen. I'll tell you what, though, the other night, I wish I pulled my phone out and videoed it, but I didn't because I was just so in awe of it. But you know how in the trailer they look up in the sky and they see the meteors coming down? Last night I walked outside into the backyard and I had to yell for Anne, like, Anne, get out here. She came out, and up in the sky, I think what I ultimately heard was it was one of the satellites coming down. But
it had like the
this
up.
bright shining streak across the sky, leaving this long trail, and it was so cool because where it was flying, you could see, like, all I can say is ocean of sparkles coming off
because it was breaking apart
as it was disintegrating in the atmosphere.
And we knew it was coming down, or
oh yeah,
okay.
They pick a trajectory, it goes into the ocean.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God, I looked up there and it was like, oh my God, you could see it like started and getting smaller and smaller, but it was like, it was one of the most beautiful things I'd ever seen. And I had to get Ann to come out there and look at it. Anyway, guys, question is for you. Where are your expectations like right now for A Quiet Place day one? Maybe you're one of those people, and I've talked to a few, it's like, hey, you know what, without John Krasinski or Emily Blunt or the kids, it's not really the movie I want to see. Maybe. Are you super excited for it like a lot of other people? Are you going to be one of those $40 to $50 million worth of people that go sees it this weekend? What are your expectations like? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that all down, it's time for us to move into the most important part of our show, which is taking your live comments and questions. But before we do, we're going to take a quick moment here and thank one of the sponsors of today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast, our friends at Miracle Made. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Miracle Made. Did you know that your temperature at night can have one of the greatest impacts on your sleep quality? If you wake up too hot or too cold, I highly recommend you check out Miracle Made's bed sheets. Inspired by NASA, Miracle Made uses silver-infused fabrics and makes temperature-regulating bedding so that you can sleep at the perfect temperature all night long. When they arrived at our house, my wife Ann loved the feel of them so much, she couldn't even wait for me to get home to put them on our bed. Miracle Made has self-cleaning. These sheets are infused with silver that prevents up to 99.7% of bacterial growth, leaving them to stay cleaner and fresh 3 times longer than other sheets. Miracle Sheets also have incredible comfort and quality. Miracle Sheets are luxuriously comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands and feel as nice, if not nicer, than sheets used by some 5-star hotels. So go to TryMiracle, that's TryMiracle.com/Campea to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo code Campea at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you will get a full refund. So upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to TryMiracle.com/Campea and use the code Campea to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's TryMiracle.com/Campea to treat yourself. And thank you to our friends at Miracle Made for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys, with that down, let's get on to the important stuff, your comments and questions. Jonathan, what we got up first?
Okay, Dad Jokes is first. Hi, John. I was rewatching MCU Civil War, and we woefully forget how good the old MCU was. The emotional depth in this movie and the tone was amazing. Cap and Iron Man's dialogue was so well written. The airport scene was not even needed, in my opinion, but a bonus.
I still think the airport scene is the best action scene overall. I'm not saying it's the best choreographed fight, but overall it's the best action sequence, I think, in comic book movie history. It was just like, because in every combat part of that sequence, there was story being told. Like, there's narrative going on between, you know, Hawkeye and Widow fighting. There's narrative going on when this person is fighting that person. I mean, it's just one of the best. You know, it's funny. Ann and I went to Vegas this past weekend. And while we were there, we were going to go out to a nightclub in the evening, and Ann was getting ready. Stereotype, takes women forever to get ready. So whereas as we're sitting around waiting for Ann to get ready, we popped on the TV and Infinity War was on. And not long ago, I watched Winter Soldier again. Here's the problem. Marvel did it so well, that they made it look easy. And we all started to take for granted just how good the MCU was. And we took for granted how impossibly difficult it is to make a good movie, let alone 20 out of 23 were awesome. Iron Man 2, Thor 2, but I mean, for the most part, every single time, and here's the phrase that I came up with. The MCU went from a place where every time we went to go see one of their movies, I expected it to be great. That's how good they were. That every time we would go to an MC movie, we expected it to be great. Today, when a new Marvel project comes out, we hope it'll be good. We went from expecting it to be great to hoping it will be good. And this is the stuff that they really need to kick back into gear with Deadpool.
I think a problem too is like with that phase, we all cared about mostly every character or all the characters. It was hard to pick your favorite one.
Well, they did a good job of investing into the characters and getting us to like the characters.
When we moved on from them, my guy was going to be the Winter Soldier. I was like, I cannot wait he's going to have his own thing. I don't even care about him anymore. And all the characters that I do care about, they're not even Avengers. They're Scarlet Witch, Loki. A lot of the ones that actually I do care about right now. I wouldn't even put them in.
And where the hell's Shang-Chi?
Oh, Shang-Chi too.
This is the best thing they've done in the MCU in the last 5 years, and we haven't gotten Shang-Chi. I mean, come on. Anyway, they're going to start turning it around. They're going to start turning it around. All right, what's next?
Okay. It's just B writes, I think with movies like Bad Boys 4, Inside Out 2, A Quiet Place Day 1 doing big numbers, and now HBO slapping their label on Lanterns, and Harry Potter away from Max, may mean studios realize streaming equals hard and expanding theatrical window again. I hope so.
Well, I mean, no, studios have been realizing that for the past year and a half. Yeah. Like, that's been clear. Like, because
the data was released and we've talked about
the comments coming out from the studios have made it clear. It's like, like streaming wasn't the thing that we thought it was going to be. But don't confuse that, though, with the label transition of Max and HBO. With the new Harry Potter series and the new Green Lantern series, stuff like that, getting the HBO label instead of the Max label, the only thing that means, because everything on Max is on HBO and everything that's on HBO is on Max. By the way, they're run by the same guy. There's like David Zaslav has one guy in charge of both. There's a dude who runs both of them. It's not about a theatrical versus streaming. It's that I think Warner Brothers, and I have said this from day one. If you guys been watching me for a while, you know we said this day one. Renaming that streaming service Max was one of the most idiot moves they could have done.
It's a rendezvous with destiny, man.
That's right. It is our destiny, said the axe. But like we said, HBO is one of the most honored, respected, and revered brands in all of entertainment. Why would you take that name out of this streaming service and just call it the name of a dog?
Well, even Max reminds you of Cinemax, which wasn't even that prestigious.
Right. Now, if you want to make it Skinamax, you've got my attention. But it's just Max. Max? That's the name of your service. And I think this transition, just labeling these shows now as HBO instead of Max. Listen, Max and HBO are interchangeable terms. It doesn't matter. It's all the same thing. But I think, and I said this on yesterday's show, I think by the end of the year, Max is going to be rebranded again. And it'll be HBO something. It might be HBO Max again. Maybe it'll be HBO Plus. Maybe it'll be HBO Plus Max. Maybe it'll be, I don't know, but I think it's definitely going to be called HBO again because they realize that's the respected brand, and they'll go back to it.
Would all the other shows fall under that then? It would be like HBO Plus's 90 Day Fiance or HBO Plus's Love It or Leave It. I mean,
Why are you bringing up 90 Day Fiance?
Because maybe that's why they chose Max. Because like they were taking on all these Discovery TLC shows that HBO didn't want to be labeled on. You know
I
what
think
I mean?
they'll just still be called TLC shows. I don't think they'll be called,
okay.
yeah, they won't be called HBO originals.
Okay.
90 Day Fiance.
Come on.
What's next?
Okay, Red One on Red Notice. Here's why my hopes aren't high for Red One. First, everything I've read about the movie makes it sound like an Amazon Prime commercial disguised as a movie. Second, I can't remember the last time a Dwayne Johnson movie wasn't exactly as advertised.
That was
Let me
only
see if
one or
there's.
two.
Oh, here's the other part. And finally, this is a sentiment that I share with Jeff Snyder. A week before Red One's release date was announced, Dwayne Johnson was announced for the Smashing Machine for A24, and we're speculating it's because he knows Red One is a stinker.
You know, Dwayne Johnson has no input or no say on when a movie gets released, right?
Or marketed.
Yeah. How it's marketed, when it's released, Dwayne Johnson has zero input on that and zero say. None. That's still a common thing with a lot of movie fans. A lot of movie fans think that the movie actors have some kind of power. They really don't. They really don't. So that has nothing to do with it. But Red One looks like trash. And I was excited for it. What, you like
might
it?
have some second. We might have gotten to a second opinion here from Ray.
Okay.
He rewatched it today.
Okay, Ray, did you watch it
Yesterday,
again?
as you know, we had like I think a record-breaking 9 topics.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just under a lot of like stress of like working on the things that I had to do. So I didn't watch the full trailer. I looked over when Jonathan was watching it. This morning I watched it.
And you liked it.
And I hate myself for saying this, but I actually want to see this movie.
You're fired.
I like the polar bear.
You're fired. Get out. No. You know what's funny? I had a few people write into me yesterday and say, you know what, John? I watched the Red One trailer and I thought it was pretty
It
good.
looks delightful.
I wish I liked it.
The
I
CG
wish
is
I
bad.
could.
What
the
I am-
CG is
Oh, the
bad.
CG's horrible.
What
But
I
the
am-
story itself is original to me. I really like the story.
Story
What they're
isn't
going
a bad thing, I guess. What I am hoping is that because it's again, I'm going to bring up how it's hard to make a trailer from a comedy. Is that the one-liners they're using? I'm hoping in the beat, the rhythm of the movie, they're just quick, and then it's just kind of moving on, and you're just like, oh, that was kind of funny or quippy. But the way they're editing it, they're leaving this like beat, and you're just like, that wasn't funny enough for a beat for me to like absorb a stupid joke.
Yeah, the CG was bad. Listen, I was excited about the movie before I saw the trailer because I like the premise. Santa Claus being played by J.K. Simmons, which is baller, gets kidnapped, and Dwayne Johnson and Chris Evans have to go and find him. That sounds like a winner to me.
And it might be a cool adventure, hopefully.
And then the trailer played, and I'm like,
know.
oh no.
know.
Oh no, but there are people who like it. You liked it.
You guys
I
are
heard
grumpy, man. I think I sit
Yeah,
here
we're
sometimes
grumpy,
with
man.
The Krampus.
two grumpy men in here.
What are they called? The name of the game?
Krampus.
Krampus
Bahama.
Schlop. Krampus
Oh yeah, where he
Schlop.
just slaps them.
Were they playing slap? All right.
We're all
well,
gonna watch this. Don't lie
I'm
to
gonna
yourself.
see it.
We're all gonna see
It's
this.
Dwayne Johnson and Chris Evans. Of course, I'm going to see it. I just think it's probably going to be really bad. Anyway, all right. What's next?
All right, Jay Newby has a two-parter. I have an X-Men MCU theory. The X-Men's universe will be destroyed, but heroes from 616 will save millions by bringing them to our universe, where they will not be welcomed with open arms. They will be deemed as universal immigrants and treated as threats. Magneto will bring his disdain toward humans with him. These humans are no different than the ones from our universe. They will not receive the same love the Asgardians did because they don't have a mascot that everybody loves. Thoughts? I could see them like, oh, well, if you're just bringing over the mutants, it's like, well, these people just like come up with superpowers. They're a threat.
Here's the problem. They kind of already did that storyline with the unblipping.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
Like that was kind of the main thrust of Falcon and Winter Soldier. Was like half the population came back, and it's like, now what? Like you get snapped, and you owned a house, and now you come back, and somebody else is living in your house. Who owns your house? You know, they and so there was a lot of things about like, hey, we were the ones who were here the whole time. So they already kind of covered that ground. So it could be, but then I don't know. it becomes tricky. Then it brings up the whole Thanos thing again, because the whole population of the Earth is now back, and you're going to bring in another population of the Earth. Like, look, I think it's clear they're going to bring in Fantastic Four and X-Men as a part of an incursion.
Yeah.
How that'll play out, though, not sure.
I just got this horrible image in my head of when people came back, because there was moments where we saw airliners going down, and they'd be blipped back there, but the airliner wouldn't be there.
No, I mean, they talked about that, and the way Kevin Feige explained it was, because somebody asked him that, like, what if somebody got snapped away when they were in an airplane? He said, when they came back, the plane's not there, so they would just appear directly on the ground wherever they were, wherever the plane was. So they were flying over Russia, they would appear on the ground in Russia. They wouldn't just appear in midair, which is a horrifying thought. Horrifying
the old
thought.
G.I. Joe, everybody has a parachute ploy, huh?
Yep.
All right.
All right, what's next?
Benny, the Aussie says, hi, John and crew. Greetings from Australia. Just wondering if you've heard the new series on Apple TV Plus called Presumed Innocent. Stars Jake Gyllenhaal on Apple TV. Need I say more? Check it out. It's on my list.
We've talked about it several times on the show. Look, the trailers for it looked incredible. I am going to watch this show. But I got to get caught up with Dark Matter first. I still haven't started Dark Matter. And now the frickin' Bear season 3 just dropped, so I got to get caught up on that. That's got to become a priority. So yeah, it's yet another thing. Listen, Apple TV has crushed it. Absolutely crushed it. And it looks like this is just the next one to add to the list. All right, what's next?
We got Bry Guy, who says, if I was a major studio releasing an epic two-parter movie event, for example, a new Star Wars film, here's what I would do. Part one, here's how I do it. Part one, Thanksgiving. Part two, Christmas. A month apart, just in time for the holiday season. Thoughts?
No, horrible. And it's gonna and it's no, seriously, it won't work.
Bry Guy.
It's not gonna work. It's a terrible idea, and this is why Kevin Costner is gonna eat huge losses trying to do with this. Here's why. Because I liked what Matrix 2 and 3 did, where they came out like 6 months apart. I even like what Lord of the Rings did with 1 year apart. I don't like this 3 years in between. But the reason the 1 month thing doesn't work is that you don't give the first movie enough room to breathe, and you don't give it an opportunity to grow its audience on home video before the second one comes out. And that, I think, is a big mistake. So if I'm doing a Star Wars film and it's a massive two-parter, what you do is you get it out there. There's going to be a lot of people that don't go see it because of the state of Star Wars right now. Hopefully your movie's awesome. If so, you let it do its full theatrical thing, get all the buzz that it gets, let it then, because then there's going to be a bunch of people that wait to see it till it comes out on home video. Let it come out on home video, let it build its audience, let it build that momentum, and then say 6 months later, then you drop the sequel. I really think you are shooting yourself in the face by having them come out 1 month apart, because then you are hyper limiting your audience. Because here's the thing, we were talking about this with the Kevin Costner thing off camera the other day, is that the problem with Kevin Costner's release schedule, and I am very curious about Horizon, but the problem is he's going to put out part 1 and no one's going to go see it. But then he's putting out part 2 a month later, and only the people who went to see part 1 can go see part 2. You've automatically limited your audience. If Horizon comes out in movie theaters and then waits 7 months to come out, not only did the people who originally got to go see it, but then all those people who later got to discover it after it found its way to home video, those then become potential audience members for the second film. As of right now, he's not going to make any money on the first one, and he's going to make even less money on the second one. So I personally think it would be a mistake to do it that way. Even though as a fan, I would love it. Like, you put out a two-parter new DC, like Superman Part 1 and 2, or Avengers 5 or 6, or a new Star Wars, like 1 month apart. I, as a fan, would love it, but from a business point of view, it would kill you. All right, what's next?
And it will. Bry Guy's back with a quote. Lawyers, I suppose, were children once. Charles Lamb, a quote from my copy of the 50th anniversary edition of Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Whenever the Pulitzer Prize. Please read the novel, John. A really good classic, so please enjoy it. I think most people have read To Kill a Mockingbird.
Who did not need to read To Kill a Mockingbird in school?
Yeah.
I mean, Atticus, what was his last name? Finch?
Finch. Yeah.
I mean, probably to this day, seriously, I think AFI lists him as the greatest hero in movie history. I mean, I don't know we're talking about the movie now, but yeah, like, it was required reading in school. And I think, I'm not going to go into it too much to say, I think more people need to go back and read it again. I'll just leave it at that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What's next?
Tron says Lightyear, Gray Man, Ghosted, Pain Hustlers, and that Red One trailer looks terrible. Chris Evans needs to either fire his agent or crawl back to the MCU because the guy's in a bit of a slump right now.
Gray Man. Gray Man is the poster child. Honestly, remember how somebody just wrote in saying, hey, when do you think the studios figured out that the whole streaming thing wasn't the way to go? I think Gray Man was a big part of that. Because I think there were people who thought that Gray Man was going to be this big movie. Remember? It's like a $200+ million movie. Chris Evans, Ryan Gosling, a good supporting cast. It was going to be this big, monstrous thing. Wah, wah. Number one, the movie sucked. It didn't have nearly as many people watch it as they thought that they would. And they lost a crap ton of money doing it. And good on them because it was a bad movie. Which is too bad because Ryan Gosling is awesome and Chris Evans is awesome. Ryan Gosling, by the way, in case you forgot, good Canadian kid. So yeah, that was a bad one. I am really waiting for, what was that stupid one too? He did Ghosted?
Yeah.
With,
Okay.
I can't even remember who was in
She
it.
was just in the Bond movie.
Oh yeah.
And she's the ballerina.
Oh, yeah.
Anna de Armas.
That one.
Anna de Armas.
Yeah.
Thank you. He did that one with Anna de Armas. It was like, okay, that's a bucket full of sexy. Chris Evans, Anna de Armas. Like the premise was kind of cool. Watch that. It's like, oh God, that movie was so bad. I mean, it's not, I don't know, Assassin's Creed with Michael Fassbender bad, but it was really bad. So yeah, it's, I'm waiting to see Chris Evans in a really good movie again.
He's
Chris,
taking shots at everybody right now.
just Chris, come back to the MCU, buddy.
Well, you know what they need
Everybody
to do?
wants you back as Captain America, my friend. Just come on back.
They need to start making it in their deal. Like, unless this gets a theatrical release, my client isn't.
Well, that's exactly how Scarlett Johansson won her lawsuit against Disney. Is she did have that in her contract. Yeah.
See, you get your money one way or another.
Yep. All right, what's next?
Little Darth Leo Adobo says, hey, John and Ray, the first trailer for Prime Video's DC animated series Batman Cape Crusader is out now. 2, what kind of family-oriented animated shows do you, Anne, and Ray like to watch together? 3, I got me a Princess Bride action figure.
Yeah, well, the trailer for Batman Cape Crusader was a nice little trailer. I liked it. I honestly, people don't like hearing the truth sometimes. Here's the truth. I don't think it's going to have a huge audience, but I think it looks good. And so who knows, maybe we can find something.
I'm a big fan of that, the DC animated stuff. I've watched every single one.
Did you see the new trailer?
Yeah, the trailer looks incredible.
I think it looked good.
Within the first 15 seconds, I said, this is all me right here. I'm going to watch this whole thing all the way through, hopefully in one day when it comes out.
As far as family animated stuff, I don't think we watch anything.
Any
I mean, you watch
animated,
Bluey.
Yeah.
But I don't watch Bluey.
No, I mean, the last thing we watched together was Ratatouille.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah, but he's talking about animated. He said series, though, right? I think he said series in his question. If you bring it up again, I think he
Yeah, he
specifically said
said
for series.
What kind of family
family-oriented
animated shows?
shows do you watch? Yeah, none.
Have you and Ann never watched the animated series? There hasn't been anything that's
the 2 animated series that Ann and I watch together are Invincible, which is definitely
that's
not family.
Yeah. What, Archer?
And Archer. Well, Ann doesn't watch Archer. I do, and that's phrasing. That's definitely not family
You're
oriented.
right. Everything we watch is not.
And Arcane,
And
which
we'll watch an episode of South Park every now and then.
yeah, again,
Definitely
so
family friendly.
yeah, no family friendly shows, animated shows that I watch. To be honest with you. All right, what's next?
Okay, Fluke with a 2-parter. Hey, Campy Crew, been watching for the past 2 years. It gets me through my overnight factory job. Anyway,
you, man.
Anyway, with the recent news about Fantastic Four being set in the 60s on an alternate Earth and the possibility of X-Men also coming from it, I had the sudden realization that by having the X-Men also set in an alternate 60s, it would make Magneto's backstory still make sense time-wise. What do you guys think? Thanks, Bring on the Filthy. But then if he were to be brought here, it'd be like, oh,
the X-Men aren't coming from there. The X-Men are going to come from the alternate reality that Photon found herself in at the end of the Marvels when Beast came out on that space station. That space station wasn't from the 60s. So I think we're not going to get the X-Men from the Fantastic Four universe. I think we're getting the X-Men from that universe that Photon went into. So, yeah, I mean, listen, it is look, the proposition is sound though, because we've been saying forever that Magneto cannot come from the German concentration camps, because now you got a Magneto who's 90 to 100 years old.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. It worked back in the late 90s. It does not work in 2025, 2026. So you have to change his core origin from that horrible experience to another horrible experience. If you say, though, that the X-Men come from a 1960s in a different world that also had Germans and Nazis and all that kind of stuff, you could, but then you're bringing that group over. Like, you already got the Fantastic Four being a small group from out of time. Now you're going to bring an entire population from out of time. Doesn't work for me. I think they're going to get the X-Men from that universe that Photon goes into. All right, what's next?
Ray Loves Trenchcoat says, although I agree that people that say George Lucas ruined their childhood are overreacting.
Completely.
Yeah, because, okay, I have to say that the episode of South Park where they went to the Lucas Ranch was hilarious. Old episode, but one of my favorites. That's a great episode.
I don't remember that one.
That's a good
Is
one.
that the same one where?
Yeah, that's the one we watched that recently.
Wait. Is that the one with Harrison Ford in it too, or Indiana Jones?
I think they definitely go to the Lucas Ranch, remember? And they're like visiting it.
Oh God, yeah, that one, yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny today how some people try to reimagine history. Like, I'm sorry, guys, I was there. I lived through it. The amount of hate that, and listen, I am somebody who hated the prequel movies. I hate the prequel movies, but the way it got expressed was so stupid. Like, George Lucas ruined my childhood. What are you talking? The original 3 movies are still there. What are you talking about? Well, the original 3 movies are sort of still there. I mean, now you got the special editions, but still, he didn't ruin nothing. He made a couple of movies now that you didn't like. That's it. He did not ruin your childhood.
Yeah, get over it, man.
People coming out of movie theaters, taking off their Jedi robes, coming out of the movie theaters and burning them.
Oh,
people,
God.
like, it was.
No way.
Yeah. Oh, dude, come on.
Are you kidding me?
No, it was horrible. The people made movies, the people versus George Lucas. People made documentaries about how George Lucas raped their childhood, they would say. It's like, come on, guys, take a breath. Ahmed Best, who played Jar Jar Binks, just an actor, just this kid who got this opportunity to be in a Star Wars movie, did what the director told him to do. That dude got death threats and you should just kill yourself. And the poor kid who played young Annie, right? That wasn't that kid's fault. He was a kid. He was being told what to do. He was being giving lines. Are you an angel? He was being given those lines by grown-ass adults.
And directed how to deliver them.
And people would turn on these kids. It's like, it was so out of line. It was so out of line. Much like what goes on today, too. But yeah, it's like, some people forget that shit.
I just feel like if you can make the statement, George Lucas ruined my childhood, you probably had a fairly decent childhood. Yeah. Because there's a lot worse things to ruin your childhood than George Lucas.
We're just fortunate to have a bunch of options now. We don't have to stick with one thing. If we don't like something, we could watch something else or do.
Oh, whatever. Won't stop a bunch of man babies from spending all their time crying about it, though.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. What's next?
Boomstick Beth says, here's my hot take. Talk to Me was the best movie of last year and the best horror movie in a lot longer than that. So good. Anyone who hasn't seen it needs to.
I gotta see it.
I liked it. I did. I'll be honest with you. I didn't think it was that great. Mm-hmm. But it was, listen, we've had a really nice run in the last decade or so of these small budget, kind of out of nowhere little horror films that have been really nice. That was one of them. Again, I don't think it was that good, but I thought it was a winner of a film. I really enjoyed it. All right, what's next?
Okay. Anonymous says, so I thought it was apparent that Redacted was a hallucination because Butcher called Becca an angel on his shoulder. Usually you have an angel and a devil. And a winky face.
It was a metaphor. I wouldn't read too literal into that. It was a metaphor. So, by the way, I haven't seen the new episode. I have not seen the new episode that dropped, I guess, at midnight or something like that. That is something I'll do once I get home from watching A Quiet Place. Is I'm going to watch the new episode of The Boys which has just been, I mean, my big debate right now is House of the Dragon better or is The Boys better? That's my kind of internal debate right now, which is a great problem to have because they're both absolutely killing it. All right, what's next?
Matan says Harry Potter and Lanterns moving from Max to HBO is very funny, as both HBO and Max have the same management. So it's like in the 90s when Disney would put films under Touchstone if they weren't family friendly enough. So Max isn't prestige to soil the HBO brand.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of inaccurate to say it's moving from Max to HBO. I literally had a couple people writing to me. Yes, like seriously, a couple people wrote to me saying, so John, I have to get cable now if I want to watch Lanterns or the new Harry Potter series. Like, it's not going to be on Max. They moved it. It's like, no, it's going to be on Max. The terms are interchangeable. It's just the label. But labels are important. And the HBO label is a brand that carries with it a lot of prestige and a lot of respect and a lot of notoriety. And that's why I think they realized it does more for it from a marketing point of view to say, because look, HBO are the greatest television producers in history. They just are. That's it. The greatest shows ever have come from HBO. And to say like Lanterns, an HBO original, carries something with it. To say this new Harry Potter series, the HBO original, like Sopranos, like Game of Thrones, like it just, you say that, it carries a prestige with it. Calling it a Max original does not. And that's why I believe by the end of the year, they will rename Max to HBO Butthole. I don't know. HBO something. It'll be HBO something, and it'll be a vast improvement for them.
I'm not signing up for that. I'm not going anywhere near that.
I'm not signing up for that. All right, what's next?
No way.
Scott Brown says, sorry, something in Star Wars that drives me crazy. They always let the bad guy live, and then they go on to take more lives. Ferocious stopped Sol from killing Kamir. He had the upper hand in a fight to the death that they were losing badly. Take it. Obi did this twice.
But that's not just a Star Wars thing. That's a traditional hero trope. You know, like, look, even if you look at one of the greatest comic line stories in ages, and I'm not just talking about the video game, Injustice Gods Among Us. Injustice Gods Among Us year one, the comic book series, is like seriously one of the best stories that I've read in a long time in comics. But that's something that gets brought up there too, right? Like Superman at the end of the day, because remember the Joker orchestrates the death of Lois Lane, the death of Superman's unborn child, and a nuclear explosion going off in Metropolis. And deep down, Superman blames Batman. He's like, you've had a million opportunities to take the Joker out. And, you know, there's the constant debate and whatever. He goes, I'm not an executioner. It's not my role. It's not my job to take him out. Blah, blah, blah. But Superman blames it. You've had a million chances to kill the Joker. And if you had killed the Joker, my wife and my unborn child and my city would be alive today. So it's not just a Star Wars thing. It's a common heroic trope, but it's a good one to explore with different characters. All right, what's next?
Lord Helmet says, unless Sol, Asha, and May die or something before telling the Jedi Council about Kamir, that will be a problem canon-wise,
yes,
as at this point in the timeline and a century after, they believe the Sith have been extinct for over a millennium, right? Or will they go with a cop-out solution like Kamir is really just Sith adjacent, or everyone decides to stay silent, or whatever the Jedis did to the Witch Coven during the fire, stay secret? I'm trying to keep an open mind with this show, but geez.
No, it's true. Look, anybody who's telling you that Acolyte, as terrible as the show is, and I've tapped out of it. I'm not going to watch it anymore. The last episode was the last straw for me. And I don't hate watch things, so I've given up on it. It's, in my opinion, terrible show. But anybody who tells you that the Acolyte has broken canon, they don't understand canon, because no, it hasn't. It hasn't broken canon, as a matter of fact. But you just brought up a very potential problem they have. Because in the Star Wars prequels, Coyote Mundi says, and the whole Jedi Council say that the whole Jedi Council doesn't believe that the Sith have been around for well over thousands of years. It's been a millennia. They not only do they not exist, they haven't existed in forever. It's a fairy tale, right? That means they've written themselves into a corner now in the Acolyte. Because out of the three that are alive and now know that there is a Sith. May, Asha, and Sol. At minimum, 2 of them have to die. They have to. One will survive and become the acolyte, because there's the rule of 2. There's always 2, a master and an apprentice, right? So one of them will live and be the acolyte. What if it's Sol? What if Sol, the Jedi, actually becomes the acolyte and May and Asha are killed? Either, whatever. The basic point is, at minimum, 2 of the 3 have to die. One of them has to be Sol that dies, unless Sol himself becomes the acolyte. Because if Sol lives, now you've broken canon. Because the Jedi aren't supposed to know that the Sith exist anymore. Sol is a Jedi who now knows the Sith exists. Therefore, he's got to die. And if he doesn't die, now they're breaking canon. They've written themselves into a corner, and they're either going to now have to do that, or they actually do break canon. Something they haven't done up till this point, but now that they will. I, unfortunately, will not be watching the rest of the episodes to find out, but you guys can let me know how it turns out. All right, what's next?
Raymond says, Omid Abadi, Samir in The Boys, also plays Dr. Pershing in The Mandalorian. I hope he doesn't get typecast as the evil doctor who later questions his morals. I hope Ryan doesn't die as a consequence of Butcher saving Samir to recreate the virus.
Anyway, move on. I haven't seen the new episode, so let's just go on.
Anonymous, I think season 7 of Game of Thrones gets too much hate. Seeing the payoff of Dany finally in Westeros and watching everyone react to the dragon and seeing the dragons burn everything, just amazing.
Season 7 of Game of Thrones won more Emmy Awards than any other TV show in history. It is a great season. Was too short. They sped through too many things. They shortcutted a number of things, but it was wonderful. I know that's the unpopular opinion, but it's often lonely.
I would have loved it if it was like 3-4 more episodes longer. It's a bummer.
100%. I agree with that. I completely am in agreement with that, but I also loved the series. Mm-hmm. I loved the finale, and to all those people who cried, but out of nowhere, Dany turned bad out of nowhere. It's like, it wasn't out of nowhere. I was saying on our after show for years, Dany was Breaking Bad. I said it for years. And every time I would say it, people would say, "You're so stupid, John." No, she's not. I'm like, they're making it obvious that Daenerys is turning bad. They're making it obvious she's going to go bad. Mm-hmm. And for years, "No, John, you're just stupid." And then she turns bad and everybody goes, "Well, that fucker came out of nowhere." It's like, no, it didn't. We've been saying it for years. Anyway, there's that. All right, what's next?
Anonymous says, regarding Harry Potter TV series, I love the books. Characters such as Ginny Weasley played a bigger part, and unlike the movies, she is very feisty. We may get to see Winky the house elf and Neville's parents as a bigger part in the books. I'm excited.
Well, this is one of the things, like, look, I am an appreciator of the Harry Potter verse. I am not a Potterhead, though, but a lot of Harry Potter fans I've heard from are excited about the new series because, like you're saying, there was a lot in the movies that left out huge parts of the books. And so with each season of the new Harry Potter show being like one book, it means they're actually going to be able to get a lot deeper into the books and have a lot of stuff that's in the books that was never in the movies.
Right. A lot of stuff will be revealed because you'll have time for flashbacks to like the parents' generation. The original Order of the Phoenix when they were first fighting Voldemort.
Yeah.
And so Voldemort's life.
There are people, of course, there are people out there that are very pessimistic about this new series. I get that 100%. But I'm surprisingly hearing from a lot of Potter fans who are actually kind of excited about the idea, especially now that we just found out that the producers from Succession, Game of Thrones,
come on.
His Dark Materials, are now show running it. I've been hearing from a number of Potterheads who are saying, you know what, we're actually kind of like the idea of having an entire season for each one of the books. And it's an HBO thing. Mm-hmm. So I got a lot of faith in it. All right, what's next?
Ian McAllister says, sorry, the anonymous question was me. Some of my favorite movie dragons include Vermithrax Pejorative, that's from Dragon Slayer, Saphir from Aragon, and the Hungarian Horntail from Harry Potter. But Damon's dragon is probably my favorite behind Smaug.
Yeah, Smaug is still my favorite. What was that terrible Christian Bale movie with dragons?
Yeah. Oh,
remember that?
Shoot.
What was the name of that movie? And I think McConaughey was in it too.
Yep, I got it. Rain of Fire.
Rain of Fire.
Rain of Fire.
That's what it was.
That's right. You know what? You go back. You keep in mind the year that movie came out. Mm-hmm. That was a pretty damn good looking dragon.
Yeah.
For that era, that was pretty damn good looking stuff there. All right, what's next?
Okay. Ian is back and says, last question. In your rewatch of Madam Web, open mic, you said you think Madam Web may be the worst superhero movie ever made. Does that include Catwoman, or did you simply forget about it?
Yeah, no. It's not on the level. It's truly horrible. Easily the worst Marvel one, but it's not Catwoman. Catwoman is one of the top 3 worst cinematic films ever put out in history. In the company of the unholy trinity, for those of you who remember, for big wide release Hollywood produced movies, the worst 3 films of all time are Battlefield Earth, The Highlander 2, and Catwoman. So no, Madam Web doesn't go there, but definitely easily the worst of anything with a Marvel label on it. All right, what's next?
Your name says HBO on cable had been showing recent theatrically released movies on Saturday evenings since the pandemic and age of streaming. Some movies being aired not even from the century. Should it show Max originals, e.g. Hacks, on cable as a substitute? So should they cross over?
I mean, I don't know. I don't watch cable. To be honest,
I don't see why not, but I mean...
Yeah, I mean, HBO has always shown movies. I mean, like, they've always shown a lot of movies on the cable network itself. But yeah, I mean, really, the two are just interchangeable. So sure, why not? Put them out there. All right, what's next?
Papa Walt says, Dogman is coming in 2025, created by Dav Pilkey, author of Captain Underpants. My kid loves it and was inspired to make comics with friends. DreamWorks is striking while iron is hot. On the surface, it's filthy dog poop jokes, but at the core, it's so heartfelt. I've never heard of Dogman.
I'm not going to lie to you. I've never heard of it. I'm not familiar with it. Do you know it? Have you ever heard of it? No one's ever heard of it. Sorry, there's somebody else in the studio that you don't see right now, guys. I've never heard of it. And did Captain Underpants actually do any good? So I don't know if they're striking well. How much did Captain Underpants make at the box office? Because wasn't that Ed Helms and Kevin Hart?
And I forgot about that movie.
I think they were the ones that did the voices in it. Did you get a box office for it?
For 2017, 125 million.
That's nothing to sneeze at. That's all right. Yeah. So, but yeah, for myself, I haven't heard of this one. That doesn't mean it can't be great. I'm just saying I haven't heard of it. That's all. All right, what's next?
Okay, Anonymous says that they forgot to add, if they do follow the Harry Potter books faithfully, in case you hear people shouting they're changing things to fit a political narrative. In the books, Ginny Weasley is actually a stronger wizard than Harry, with her being the 7th child.
I did not know that. I never read the books, so I mean, I don't know any of that, but that's an interesting thing to hear. All right, what's next?
Optimus Prime Ribs says, people... Gets them every time. People need to make up their minds. Theaters are dying. Watch movies in theaters. Inside Out is a smash hit. Not like that. Now all we're going to get is sequels and IP. Tons of original films every year. We want good original films. Yeah, I know, man. They got to just stop the chatter.
I mean, again, very few things have ever frustrated me as much doing this job over the years is when I hear people say, they don't make original films. Yeah, they do. They make tons of them. Matter of fact, this weekend, Kevin Costner's bringing us this big, huge $100 million original film.
Yeah.
With Horizon. And apparently nobody's going to go see it.
Yeah, there you
so
go.
Stop your crying that they don't make big original films, because they absolutely do. More today than any other time in history, as a matter of fact.
And they're small original films. They don't even support them.
Small ones, big ones, all types of them. And people don't go to support them. All right, what's next?
Paul Dean says, hi, John and company. I don't know how heavy your music taste is, but I saw a Ghost concert film in the cinema recently. Someone else was just talking about this.
Yeah,
it was amazing. Had goosebumps throughout. If you like the band, I recommend giving it a watch. If you get the chance, thanks for all you do.
I'll be honest with you. I don't even know who it is. I don't know who Ghost is. I've never heard of him.
I don't either.
Never heard of him. That doesn't mean they can't be awesome.
People are liking their movie because that's the second person to mention.
Yeah, we've had a couple people write in to say to talk about. Somebody wrote in and asked about, using this one as the preface for their question. They said, "What do you think about concert films?" And we talked about that a little bit. But yeah, I'm not familiar with them, to be honest with you. Todd Nappernick in the live chat is saying they're a modern day Kiss. Not gonna lie, I like the sounds of that. That sounds pretty good. All right, what's next?
Okay, on to our members. CJ Rebirth says, happy 30 years this week to the OG Lion King movie from Disney. That can't be right, because that would make me my second all-time favorite movie from them, behind Aladdin. Also, one of the best scores done by Hans Zimmer.
The original Lion King turns 30?
There's no way.
Wow. I mean, it is my all-time, it's my number one all-time favorite animated film. Right behind it is Aladdin. But my all-time number one favorite animated film is Lion King. The original. You know what? When they came out with the CGI remake in 2019, I got to go and sit down. It was a thrill. And now I'm freezing. The guy who played Benson. Who did the voice of Rafiki. Garab. Look up his name for me, will you?
Benson.
Guillaume. No, not Guillaume.
Robert Guillaume?
Oh yeah, I think it's Guillaume.
Yeah, it was Guillaume. Yeah, it was Robert Guillaume. I got a chance to sit down. I believe he's passed away now, but I had a chance to sit down and talk to him. And that was a thrill for me. And just talking about, when he talked about his long career and all that kind of stuff, but the place Rafiki had and all that is just, it was such an amazing film. I can still watch that to this day. One of my favorite videos on YouTube is somebody put this. Do you ever see this, Ray? Somebody put this video on YouTube where it's their dog loves watching Lion King. And whenever it gets to the scene of Mufasa dying at the bottom, you've seen this video of Mufasa dying.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen
thing, and Simba comes walking out and sees his dead dad. The dog cries. The dog starts to cry. They say every time dog cries at that scene. Oh, I love dogs. Okay. All right. What's next?
Okay. Can I just say that Benson was a deep pull there from you? Benson.
What was the original? That was a spinoff of Soap.
Yep.
That's a deep cut.
That's even deeper. There you go.
Benson was a deep cut in and of itself.
Yeah.
That it was a spinoff of Soap is even deeper. All right.
Steven says, good afternoon, fellas. Saw A Quiet Place Day 1 last night. Had a horrible experience. The couple next to me would not shut up. The woman screamed at every little thing. Luckily, I'm seeing it again at a fan event. I'm hoping for a better experience. Keep up the great work.
Okay.
I don't mind if they scream, but talking is bad.
Actually listen, if I'm at a comedy and somebody's laughing their fool head off, to me, that heightens my experience. Yeah. If you're watching a horror and somebody's like screaming out, that heightens the experience.
But talking.
I mean, my God, you should come and sit beside Ray Ora sometime in one of these movies. Because like Ray will give running commentary, but like engaged in the movie, it's like, oh no, he's not about to do that. No, don't do that. No.
To be frank, there was no one watching Meg 2 with us that day.
That's true.
There was no one in there. I mean, we could have threw a party. There was no one in there. So
that's true. That is true. Yeah, so for me, I mean, nothing though beats, in a good or a bad way, my drive-in theater experience, where prior to the pandemic opened up an opportunity for me to go back to the drive-in theater. It was great. I mean, it was wonderful getting to go to a drive-in theater. It was the only way you could see a movie during that time when the pandemic was going on. But prior to the pandemic, I hadn't been to a drive-in movie theater in like 20 years. Because the last time I went to a drive-in movie theater, we were literally behind a pickup truck.
Oh boy.
And halfway through the movie, young guy and girl got into the back of the pickup truck and decided to fornicate standing in the back of the pickup truck right in front of us, in front of a lot of people. It's like, not the show I came here to see.
Did you watch this in Ohio? Or what?
No, it was in Canada.
Oh.
It was in Canada. People taking advantage of the warm weather, I suppose. If I'm not mistaken, I think they were doing a replay of Batteries Not Included, which I guess
the couple or the movie?
The movie was the couple. No batteries needed for them. No, sir.
How much they get off the ticket?
How much they get off? I'm not sure. All right. What's next?
Okay. Cultural Diplomacy says, I hope Fantastic Four can bring back some of the love of the MCU and be original while still being unique at the same time.
I mean, yeah, listen, whenever a new movie's coming out, we all hope it's going to be great. Well, some pathetic losers hope movies are bad, so whatever, they don't count. But whenever a new movie's coming out, we hope it'll be great. I certainly hope. Listen, they got a great people behind the camera on it. They casted it brilliantly. It's a wonderful cast. Kevin Feige's clearly very excited about this property, so here's hoping, fingers crossed. First things first, though, they got to make Deadpool great. They got to make Deadpool great. Because if Deadpool's bad, Marvel's done. They're just in a precarious position right now, and if Deadpool comes out, Marvel Jesus comes out, and if it's bad, they're in trouble. So they got to make sure Deadpool's really good. Okay, last two questions of the day. What's next?
Carlos says, hey, John and crew, with James Gunn now being the co-head of DC Studios, does that bar him from making any of his original films? I thought Slither and Super were great, and being the creative force that he is, I find it hard to believe he won't get any more original works of his.
Of course, he can but he'll just do it under his own banner. Mm-hmm. By the way, and being the head of DC does not mean they can only make films that came from DC Comics. DC is still free as his brand. He is the co-CEO. They can see under the DC banner, I'm going to make this new original film. I mean, so yes, that is there. I mean, clearly he's going to focus on developing out and building out the comic book universe. That's going to be job number one, probably for the first 5 years. But don't be shocked if a bunch of years from now that James Gunn doesn't introduce a new original film under the DC banner. It's something he could do. All right, last question of the day. What's next?
All right, Laurie Howard says, hello, my friends. So we watched The Quiet Place 1 and 2 before going to day 1 today at 7 p.m. Have you ever made sure to re-see previous movies before going to the new one? I definitely did it with like Lord of the Rings.
As a matter of fact, we just did that with Inside Out. The night before we went to the opening night of Inside Out 2.
Yeah, because Ray hadn't seen it, right?
Yeah, Ann and I wanted to rewatch it because we hadn't seen it in a number of years, and Ray had never seen the original. And we thought he should probably see it before we go. So the night before we saw Inside Out 2, we sat down, and I forgot how great that movie is. That first one is so good. It's just, oh man, Pixar knows how to do it right. All right, guys, and that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show podcast. Thank you so much for being here and making this little show part of your day. Big special thank you to all you guys who sent in those questions. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported our channel as you did it, and all of us involved with the show. Thank you guys so very much for your support. Don't forget to come on back and join us again tomorrow. So in the meantime, for the people in the room, Ray Ora.
Yeah.
Jonathan Boyko.
Okay, see you guys.
My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.